it's a whole bigger picture. It's not just about the golf, it's about helping others, because you never know who needs you at that particular time.
I think just keep reaching out for veterans, getting them the help they need. And if you can help one veteran, everything's worth it at that point.
I'm Mason Reed, and this is Invested in the Game, an original podcast from Charles Schwab. Each episode, we tell the story of remarkable people who have committed their time, resources, and emotional energy into making golf the wonderful and sometimes maddening game that it is. On today's episode, I'm talking with Chad Pfeifer and Mike Browne. Though they're from different sides of the Atlantic Ocean, they share a ton in common. They both served in their country's military, they're both missing a leg, and they've both become tremendous golfers. And by tremendous, I mean pros. But as amazing as their stories are about reaching the highest levels of golf, the real story is how golf has provided them with a means for rehabilitation, both mentally and physically, and how they use golf as a platform to help veterans and non-veterans alike find hope, inspiration, and purpose. On a personal note, I've known Chad and Mike for many years, and I can say without hyperbole that they are both heroes of mine. I think you'll understand why when you hear their stories. We talk about their military service, their injuries, how they were introduced to golf, how they became so good at golf, and most importantly, how they share their stories and messages to help all kinds of people, especially veterans. One final note, Chad and Mike describe the nature of their injuries in detail, and if that is something you don't want to hear, you can jump past that part. I hope you enjoy the conversation with Chad and Mike as much as I did. Chad and Mike, welcome to Invested in the Game. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
We, Schwab, first met you all because we were planning to film a Challengers film several years ago that ended up getting canceled at the last minute. And as it turned out, someone had discovered that the Simpson Cup was happening in New York. And so we pivoted at the last minute and got introduced to the On Course Foundation and the Simpson Cup and to the two of you as well as many other people. And lo and behold, here several years later, we're a partner of the On Course Foundation. We have had veterans at the Charles Schwab Challenge, and it's a great partnership. And we're going to see everyone next year when they show up at Shady Oaks, just outside of our headquarters in Texas. So we'll talk more about the Simpson Cup in a second. But before I do that, and before we jump in, I just want to say on behalf of myself and Schwab and everyone listening, thank you for your service, your sacrifice, for sharing difficult and personal stories, and for using golf as a platform to help both veterans and non-veterans, which we'll talk a little bit about here. And we are experimenting two guests at the same time. This is a new one for Invested in the Game. So normally we'd start with some background on how people got introduced to golf, but I want to hold on that for just a little bit because I think it's important to find out a little bit just about your background before we talk about military service as well as introduction to golf. So why don't we start with you, Chad? Where did you grow up, and what was the role of just sports in your life when you were growing up?
Yeah, I grew up in Caldwell, Idaho, and was really just very athletic growing up. Had an older brother, so I was always competitive. But naturally, baseball was what I was drawn to the most. So I absolutely loved baseball. Played basketball and football just to kind of stay in shape for baseball. But loved baseball growing up. Was very passionate about it. Ended up playing some college baseball at Blue Mountain Community College in Oregon, and then transferred to Northwest Nazarene University to play 2 more years before I eventually joined the military. But sports was always a thing growing up. Like I said, had an older brother. Dad was competitive. My whole family with 3 other sisters, I mean, even they were competitive, even playing board games at holidays. And I mean, it could get pretty competitive.
Everything was a contest in the Pfeifer family.
Yeah.
What about you, Mike? Where'd you grow up, and what was the role of sports in your life?
So I grew up in a little sleepy town called Street in Somerset, which is in the southwest of England. I was very, very sporty growing up. All my family are really sporty, so I had a lot to live up to, really. I played a lot of like football, soccer and rugby, what we have over here, and I was a big avid motocross rider, so that was pretty much, my dad was a racer all his life, and I sort of followed in his footsteps. So yeah, I got to travel Europe racing motocross, so I was very lucky in that, and so it was like a very competitive sport for me. So I did all that before joining the military, and obviously I did it during the military as well. So I was at an elite level motocross rider throughout my sort of career, really.
So why we stick with you. You both have mentioned playing a lot of these sports and athletics in advance of the military. What was your decision, Mike, to go into the military? What were the circumstances where you said, I'm going to become a Royal Marine?
So, yeah, basically, I wanted to be a PE teacher growing up, but where I lived was very sleepy, very sort of like there was one school. So my chances of becoming a sports teacher were very limited. So I decided to join the army. So I joined the Royal Artillery in 99 and then did my PTI course, endurance training leader. So I followed it into the military way of being a physical training instructor within the military. So it was sort of my career path, but it was just in the military. So yeah, it was a great job for me.
And the commando regiment that you were a part of was deployed to lots of places. I know that they ended up in Kosovo and Iraq and Afghanistan, Norway. I mean, they were in a lot of places around the world. Did you go to any of those? Where did you go when you were?
I started off with Kosovo and then Sierra Leone in 2000, and then we did Telek 1 in 03, and then that was pretty much what consisted of then. So the military they were deployed all over the world. So it was a great regiment.
All right, now Chad, over to you. Same thing. Slightly different path, I know, for you going into the military, but talk a little bit about how you ended up making that decision. You talked about playing some sports in college in advance of that.
Yeah, so my sophomore year was when the 9/11 attacks happened, and I was heavily impacted by that event and really wanted to join right then and there. I had a conversation with my dad who basically broke it down and said, you can always join the military. You can't always play college baseball, so think about it. And so I did, and eventually finished out college and finished in playing baseball. And then as soon as baseball was over with, I was probably one of the easiest recruits that my recruiter had, because I walked straight in and said, tell me where to sign. I'll do anything. So, of course, you go through the process, take the ASVAB, do all that stuff. And I basically had a choice, but infantry was the only thing I wanted to do. And so I said, sign me up for Army infantry. And away I went down to Fort Benning down in Georgia, did my basic training, and then jump school, got offered to be an airborne infantry guy, and went from there, got stationed up in Alaska, and then deployed to Iraq in 2006.
Did you have a military family, or were you the first person within your immediate family that went into the military?
It was funny because growing up, I was never I would never have thought I would join the military. And I had a lot of respect for the military too, because we had a lot of family. My father was in the Air Force. One of my grandfathers was in the Marines. One was in the Army. Had several uncles, cousins that were part of the military. So yeah, it was a lot of history in our family with the military, but it was never really something that I was, thought of myself doing. I was kind of along the lines of Mike. I was going through, when I was in college, going through kinesiology, wanted to be a sports trainer, just wanted to do something with sports, whether that was playing or, on the sidelines, kind of doing it behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, I never thought of myself going to the military. And there I was, just heavily impacted by 9/11
and making that recruiter's job that day extremely easy, at least with you. And so we'll stick with you. And if you don't mind, I've heard the story previously about your injury, and I know it can be challenging to have to tell this year after year after year, but talk a little bit about the circumstances leading up to your injury, and injuries plural, I guess.
I'll first say thank you for giving me the opportunity, because I, like most people, I think talking about it is a great form of therapy. And while it is tough sometimes, it is, it's good for veterans to talk about that. So, but yeah, I got deployed to Iraq in 2006 with my unit. We didn't do a whole lot when we first got there. Of course, we were in Kuwait for a little bit, just doing train up stuff. And then we would just have to sit and protect like these passageways. One was a bridge. We spent Thanksgiving 2006 just sitting on a bridge, watching, who was coming across. And then fast forward to April of 2007, our unit got called to go on this new road that hadn't been patrolled in a while. And everyone kind of had a bad feeling because it was notorious for getting shot at, and then a lot of IEDs on that route. So we started on this route, and we probably weren't a mile or two into it and started taking fire from a house. And so we kind of returned fire, did our protocol. Our dismount guys in our trucks, because we were in the Humvees, I was on top on the 50 cal, and our dismount guys get out and kind of chase them around, do whatever. Later that night, we get intel that an IED is getting planted on a nearby route. So we kind of set up an overwatch position over that to try to see, and nothing ended up happening. So we got called back. It was about 1:32 in the morning. Our commander called us, said, "Hey, you guys got a mission in the morning. Why don't you head back?" And as we started to head back to our fob, our driver's night vision goggles went out. And of course, military, everything's tied down to you. You can't just swap out stuff. And our dismount guys were in the back sleeping. They'd had a long day. And I just volunteered to hop down. And it was a quarter mile down the road after we switched that our truck hit a pressure plate IED, just kind of perfectly placed. The explosion was just big enough to puncture a small hole in the bottom of the truck. It just happened to be directly under my left leg, and took off my left leg pretty clean at the shin. When I talked to the medic later, he said it was just dangling by a piece of skin. My guys did a great job, getting me out of the truck, putting the tourniquet on, getting me fluids, getting me medevaced out of there in 9 minutes, they said, which is pretty fast time.
Were you conscious during this?
So I got knocked unconscious for the initial explosion. I believe, of course, everything feels like an eternity when you're going through that, but I feel like it was about 15 to 20 seconds when I was knocked unconscious. And when I came to, I could just remember hearing the guys in the back and up in the gun, asking if everyone was okay. And at the time, this is obviously before the shock set in, but it just felt like both of my feet were asleep because the floor panel kind of mushroomed out from the explosion and fractured my right heel and pinned it up against the center console. And so it was just like my feet were asleep. There wasn't a whole lot of pain. It was just kind of a numbness going through both of my feet. And the next thing I kind of remember was the medic getting to the driver door and opening it. And the first thing I remember him saying on the radio to our platoon sergeant was that his leg's gone. So obviously hearing that, your mind starts wandering, starts thinking all sorts of stuff. And of course, this is my night vision had got blown off my head. Everything's dark. I'm still seeing stars. So I can't just look down and feel or see it. But I do feel like just a cold liquid kind of surrounding my left leg. And that's when I knew, after hearing that and then feeling that, I was like, okay, things aren't so great right now.
What was the journey there from medvac to, ultimately you came back to the States, but what were the stops along the way to get you home from that?
Yeah, so the initial medevac was the Black Hawk came in, transported me up to Baghdad, the green zone up there, where I believe they initially did a couple of surgeries, just kind of the basic. I think they kind of wrapped up the leg, got everything kind of under control. Not really sure how long I was there. I don't feel like it was that long. And then from Baghdad, flew me to Landstuhl, Germany, where I was there for a while doing most of the procedures, cleaning up the leg. And then from Landstuhl, flew back to Walter Reed. I remember getting stuck there in a snowstorm for 3 days, and then ultimately ended up down in San Antonio, the Brooke Army Medical Center there, where I did all my recovery and my physical therapy and rehab down there.
Thank you for sharing that. So, Mike, your story is a little bit different because you have non-combat injury, but a similar one to Chad. Talk a little bit about how that came to be.
Yeah, look, Chad's is such a crazy story. Mine's not exclusive as that, but so mine, I broke my leg on a training exercise down at a place called Longmoor, which is in the southwest of England. It's like a big, massive sand area. Just training really, and then didn't think nothing of it. And then I got castavaced straight to Cosham Hospital, which is in Portsmouth, which is a military hospital down in the south of England. Just went in there with a routine, well, it was quite a bad break, but it was just a routine broken leg. Didn't think nothing of it. And then basically they kept me in hospital for 3 weeks and they didn't know what to do with me. And they had like metal work. So I had what they call a fixator, because basically my tibia plateau had shattered that bad that it was just mush. And they tried operating and put a fixator on, etc., to try and figure out what to do with it. So yeah, and then I got an infection then called streptococcal, and it set in pretty quick. So I was in a situation where I had to either lose my leg straight away there because the infection had taken hold straight away, or I was to go into a thing called a Lizaroff frame for 2 years to basically fuse my knee. So what had happened is they took my knee out, what was left of it, and they broke my shin bone. So I had to lengthen my leg 1 millimeter a day with just a 10 mil spanner, basically. So if you imagine a bicycle wheel, I had 5 of them going down my leg, and I had to just strengthen it, like lengthen it every day for 1 millimeter for 2 years. So, and in that time I had nearly 30 operations. So, it was awful that they just tried to save it and save it and save it. And it was just limb salvage at the end, where they took me out of the frame, and the doctor told me to stand up and my leg come back through my skin. So the bone hadn't actually done anything. So they re-broke, and they were like, we want to put you back into the frame for another 2 years. And I was just like, I can't do that. I was at the point where, my life had changed so much. I'd drastically gone downhill. My mental health wasn't in a good place. I was on like nearly 50 to 60 tablets a day, and I was in a very, very dark hole, and I sort of tried to end my life. And it was at that particular time where I found golf. So yeah, that was a very, very low moment in my life that I needed something, and golf came along to save me, basically. Yeah, so that was pretty much touching 2 years after I broke my leg that I found golf, and that was the exact time I decided to amputate my leg. So it was an elective amputation for me. It was because of the infection I got. It was getting higher and higher up my leg, and they were like, we need to do something with you now, or you're not going to make it. So I was like, yeah, just literally the easiest decision I ever made was just to get rid of it, and I don't regret it to this day.
That's a lot to endure before finally making what you're saying was an easy decision. Had you ever played golf before?
No, I was a soccer player and a motocross rider. So yeah, that was my sports.
When you're in this place in your life that's so difficult, how did golf just show up? Like it doesn't. There's not usually like golf things going on in hospitals or military hospitals.
No, this is what I mean. Where golf literally, Chad will know what I mean. A lot of people say it, like golf literally saved my life. So I tried to jump out of a high window, and I was in a place called Tedworth House, which is a recovery center for wounded veterans, basically. It's sort of like your Walter Reed recovery center. And I'd just gone there because obviously I tried to end my life. So I went to a recovery center to try and stable me up, basically try and sort my head out and what was going on in my life. And there was a poster on the wall for the Encores Foundation. And literally my PRO which is my pre-release officer. So I don't know what it's like in America, Chad, but we get, like, when you get in medical discharge, you get a pre-release officer. So it's like you go to a different unit that sorts all your rehabilitation and all that sort of stuff out. So he said to me, right, he says, you're going for a day with a charity called the Encores Foundation. And I was like, yep, no worries. Didn't think nothing of it, and got there and hit probably 50 balls. I missed 49 of them, but I hit one of them and fell in love with it. And I thought, this was something that I could relate to. I was talking to again, because bearing in the time, like, I hadn't left my house for probably 6-8 months. So I was in a very, very dark place. And a lot of soldiers, a lot of veterans are in that place still. And this is why I love golf, because it's so amazing for rehabilitation. And just in everyday life, golf can change just like that. It can change everything. So, and that's what it did for me. And that's why I say it saved my life, because literally a couple of days before I was trying to end my life, and all it took was seeing a poster on the wall, and it changed my life. So yeah,
incredible. I like a sign from the universe. And we'll talk about this in a second. And I hate to give away some of the punchline of this, but you went from missing 49 to 50 balls to becoming a pro golfer. So this story just gets crazier. So all right, Chad, you just said that when you grew up, you were playing a lot of sports, but you were a big baseball player. Had you played any golf growing up? And then what happened from San Antonio to you becoming or getting introduced to the game?
I had played maybe a handful of times growing up, and it was just like one of the times I can remember is our senior year at Northwest Nazarene University playing baseball. We'd always do a golf tournament fundraiser for our team. So as seniors, you get to play on a team. But the most that I remember from that is just me and a couple of the guys having a long drive contest, just seeing how long you could hit it. Like their short game was nothing. It was just, we were just goofing around and at the golf course and having fun. But yeah, when I was going through, like Mike was talking about, we had the Warrior Transition Battalion is what ours was called, where our wounded veterans would go to and kind of do the military thing. But your main goal was to, do your therapy and rehab. And so when I was going through that, it was a pretty small world moment. So one of the guys was at his tail end of his recovery as I was kind of just getting started. He was missing both of his legs. He was in an IED blast, which resulted in one above the knee and his other one below the knee. And one of the days he came around to the room and he's like, "Hey, when you get up on your prosthetic, let's go, we'll go do something." And of course I was like, absolutely. Well, his wife was one of the nurses there, and she was our sports therapist at this college that I went through. So we went to school together at Northwest Nazarene University. And like I said, small world moment. Her husband ended up getting injured, and he was the one that kind of when that day came around, when I got my prosthetic, he took me out to the golf course. And I was pretty reluctant at first because it was like, I had always kind of thought golf was for old people and people with money. Like it was one of those things we joked around that just golf wasn't for me, but it was the same kind of story as Mike. Like he took me out and we hit a couple balls and you hit that sweet spot, and there's something about that feeling. You hit one that does exactly what you want it to, what you envision it doing. And it just feels so good coming off the club. And you're like, holy cow, I could do this, for a while. And so it was just, I fell in love with it, became very passionate about that. And, being an athlete growing up, I had a tough time envisioning myself, with this leg, not being able to run fast or even run to the, capability that I once could. Like even trying to think about playing softball or pick up basketball games, like it was just very depressing for me to think about. So when golf came along, I was like, man, I could be, pretty competitive at this. It's an individual sport. So it's kind of the more you work at it, you don't need a team to really practice. So I became very passionate about it, would start going to the driving range there at the base. And when I first went in there, the head pro, he obviously saw my prosthetic and that I was injured veteran. He was like, yeah, go pick out a rental set and you can hit balls and, do whatever you need to if you want to keep coming out here. And so he set aside that rental set that I somehow picked the same set every single time out of 10 rental sets that are exact same. He noticed that I was picking the exact same one. So for whatever reason, but, he just let me hit balls. And after a while, he was like, you want to get out and play or you want to just keep hitting balls? And so I started playing and just became very competitive and started looking into tournaments that I could play, and came across the National Amputee Golf Association, which I thought was awesome because there's a whole group of people missing their legs that have kind of devoted their lives to golf. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And then it was actually shortly after I found that organization that I got asked to participate in the very first Simpson Cup in 2012, which at the time I didn't know much about On Course Foundation. They asked me if I wanted to play and that they were hosting it at TPC Sawgrass. And the little that I did know about golf at the time, I was like, I know that's one of the nice courses. So yeah, I might as well go play it. And just fell in love with that. The whole concept of wounded US versus UK soldiers. All the guys there were absolutely amazing. Some of the guys I still, are friends with to this day, including, Dave Ward and some of the UK guys that were there, and Ian Bishop. Like, you just form these great friendships and bonds with these people who are similar stories, but living across the world, and it's pretty cool that we could all get together like that.
One or two more things, and I want to kick it over to Mike with some similar questions, but I'm going to assume that, and I've found being around injured veterans, that almost everybody also has PTSD. It's kind of like another layer on top of injuries. This may be really obvious, but is it critical that when people go through these experiences that they have something to channel their energy and to get it away from negative energy, whether that's fishing or golf or painting? I mean, just like, is that a part of the rehabilitation? Is like, you have to have a place to channel energy?
I would definitely say so. Yeah. Something you can be passionate about, something that kind of keeps you looking forward to, the next time you go out golfing, or the next time you go out hunting or fishing, or like you said, it could be anything. Any kind of productive activity that you can just fall in love with, and it keeps you looking forward to the next day. It just keeps you motivated. And I think that's what a lot of guys, including myself, lose that motivation when you're sitting there in the hospital bed thinking, what the heck am I going to do with my life? And then all of a sudden you're introduced to golf, for me, but whatever it is that keeps you passionate and keeps you looking forward to the next day or the next activity you get to go out and do. So having that motivation is, I think, very crucial for guys going through therapy and having gone through what we've gone through.
At what point after you started playing golf did you think that you might be good at this, and not just good, that it's rehabilitative, or that you could hang with some so-so golf? When did you, where you're like, I'm good at this? Like, I'm real good. Like, when did you think that this might actually put you in the kind of top percentage of people who can ever play this game?
I think for me, it was 2011 at the Warrior Open. And the Warrior Open was a golf tournament put on by President George W. Bush down in Texas. And I ended up winning that. And then later that same year, I won the National Amputee Golf Championships in Arizona. But it was after I won the Warrior Open, I had other veterans and other people with disabilities that would kind of congratulate me and then say just how cool it was what I was doing, and that I was winning these tournaments, and this is kind of my thing, and I'm just having fun playing a game. But to know that it was impacting other people and they were proud of me and like telling me that I was motivating and inspiring them, like that kind of hit me pretty hard. The initial goal was just to get my story out to as many people as I could. Like, if it could help one or two other veterans, if it could introduce them to the game of golf, I was all for it. And so after thinking about it and wanting to get my story out there, it was, what's the biggest platform I can use? So that was the goal, is to make it to the PGA Tour, just to be on TV, to get my story out there. And I tried the professional golf thing for a few years, and I'm still technically a professional because I play in a couple professional events a year. But, I found that being on TV every week is not crucial for getting my story out there and helping inspire people. And that's what led me to become more involved with the On Course Foundation. Just any organization that I could kind of be a part of to get my story out there was kind of the new goal. So yeah, that was 2011 was kind of that aha moment. Like, hey, you're pretty decent at this game, and keep going from there.
And I don't think that for me, the point of both of your stories is not necessarily the quality of golf that you achieved. I think that just adds a head scratching element to so many people that hear your stories and see you, and then don't, like, anybody aspires to be as good as golf at you, and nobody gets there. You're like, less than 1% of people are as good as you guys. But that's not the point. I mean, the point is taking something, a tough situation, turning it into positive, influencing people. Like, I get it. It's just, it is a layer that is curious. I think when people maybe don't get to see you play golf and then they find these things out. So Mike, you had never played golf. You hit 49 out of 50 sucky balls. And then you went quick, didn't you? Because you kind of like got addicted to it and you put all your entire life into it. How long until you actually got good? And you can define what good is. I know you got to scratch or under scratch pretty quickly, but and then when did it go from this is helping me find a more positive track in my life to like, I'm pretty darn good at this thing. I'm actually a really good golfer.
For me, it was probably like, so I never turn pro for the reason of being on a major tour or anything like that. I'm exactly the same as Chad. I just wanted to prove to not only myself, but to other people that had injuries, had life-changing injuries, had disabilities, that no matter how sort of disabled or injured you are, there's still something you can do, and something you can do at a very, very high level. I used golf as a therapy for a long time. Like I say, I've become addicted to it because I think that was my way of coping with what was going on in my head, what was going on in my life at the particular time. So yeah, I would just go to the range in the morning and just bash balls all day. I had no clue what I was doing. I had no sort of tuition at that time. I was just going there and I was probably bashing 200-300 balls a day, just for the fact that I was taking my mind away from what was going on in my life at the time. So I just stick my headphones on and just go into my own world, and that was my peace for the day. That was my therapy for the day, and that was my sort of time that I could reflect and, try and understand what my future held, basically, because I didn't know at that time where I was going to be, what I was going to do or anything. So, but it wasn't until a tournament that I played in, and then that's how I found out about the On-Course Foundation Simpson Cup, because I didn't really know much about it. Obviously, I'd been with the On-Course Foundation, but I didn't know much about the Simpson Cup. I know it's the same people, but it's a different entity. So, and then everyone was like, "Oh, dude, you got to see this lad called Chad play." And I was like, "Okay." But yeah, he probably doesn't know him, but he was my inspiration. He was my idol, who I wanted to be, who I wanted to play like. So I developed my life around trying to get as good as Chad through one leg. So thank you, Chad, for that, mate.
Absolutely.
You changed my life in that aspect. Yeah, that was pretty it. And then I played at a big tournament called the Willow Classic. And you probably heard of Ian Woosnam, and there was a few other players that I got to play with. And I shot 5 under that day. I don't know how and I don't know why, but I shot 5 under and I beat them all. And I was like, what the hell?
Wait, I just have to interrupt you. I try not to do this. How long till you did this from when you learned the first time you picked up a golf club?
That was probably about 14 months.
14 months?
Yeah. So I got my first handicap in July 2014 of 28. So it was probably less than that, actually. It was probably like 8 months, actually, because it was January, February, March. Probably like April 2015 that tournament was there.
Unbelievable.
It just happened that way. And then the final round, it was over 3 days. So the final round, I played with a gentleman called Mark James, who, to be fair, I had no idea who these dudes were at the particular time. And obviously people were telling me. So yeah, they were like, he was the Ryder Cup captain in, I don't know what year was it. And I was like, oh, okay.
So I'll beat him too. Yeah.
Yeah.
With my 8-month-old golf game.
Obviously we were playing off like different tees, but it was very surreal because Mark James come up to me afterwards and he said, what are you doing? How long have you played? He thought I'd been playing all my life. And I said to him, and he was like, what do you want to do with this? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. And he says, maybe you should turn professional at some point and, get your story and tell everyone what's going on. And so that was pretty much the main reason I turned pro, probably like 15 months after taking up golf, I turned pro. So
that's a whole nother podcast. I guess we'll have to do another time. I thought you were going to say, and my memory is bad, I thought you were going to say it was 3, 4, 5, 6 years, at which point I was going to say that's crazy too, but that's insane. All right. I want to talk about the Simpson Cup, but one more question for you, Mike. We've already covered how quickly you became good. What are some of your favorite accomplishments that you've done in the golf world?
So the highlight of my sort of golf career is obviously I'm such a big advocate and a big supporter of the Simpson Cup. So that's my main goal every year, is to be on the team. Like Chad said, I've got so many friends from across the pond, both sides now. But I won the G4D Tour final in Dubai in 23. Got loads of stuff with Rory and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that was a very proud moment of my life. And I've won the first G4D PGA Tour event at Craig's Ranch in Texas. So that's my pinnacle at the moment. Winning on US soil is pretty special. Yeah, I'm so lucky. I've got, golf's given me such an amazing experience, and not just life, but it's given me everything. So yeah, I'm very proud of it.
What about you, Chad? You'd mentioned the Warrior Open. You did not mention what happened in front of President Bush. So maybe you could mention that. And then what's another accomplishment you're proud of in the golf world?
Yeah, that story that you referenced was definitely one of the top highlights of my career. And that was the second year of the Warrior Open in 2012 on hole 4. I hit a hole-in-one. And so we're up on the tee box going crazy. And we look back to the green, and President Bush is on the green with his hands up in the air. and I'm like, holy like just cussing at myself. But I'm like, holy crap, he just saw that. And so we couldn't believe it. Like, we knew he was out there on the course watching everybody, but I was, blown away that he was right off the back of the green, and I never noticed him, and that he was one of my witnesses for that hole-in-one. So that was pretty awesome.
You couldn't have imagined being from lying in rehab in San Antonio and not playing golf. And I don't want to steal your thunder. You've been on the Big Break television show. You've been on the Golf Channel interviewed. I don't even know how many times. A president of the United States has seen you hit a hole-in-one. I mean, have you ever stopped and said, what happened? Like, what is going on here? I was a baseball player and an infantryman.
I know, it's pretty funny too, because I talked with one of my high school buddies, and he asked me one time, he's like, what do you think now that you're a golfer? Like, what would your high school self tell yourself now? It's like, my high school self probably would have kicked my
butt. Would have fought you.
Knowing that I was a golfer,
or something.
But no, just the opportunities I've had through the game of golf and through all the different organizations and people that I've met through the game of golf has just been incredible. And there's a lot of highlights, and I do, there's plenty of times where I pinch myself, and I consider myself very lucky for the opportunities that I've had. But like you mentioned, Big Break was an amazing opportunity for me. That was probably the biggest, platform to get my story out there and help inspire other people. And there's still people that come up to me this day that are like, man, that bunker shot you hit on the Big Break still inspires me. Like, I remember that like clear as day. And I'm like, holy cow, that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
but
I barely remember.
Cool that they remember, right? Yeah.
What was your nickname on there? Was it Captain Clutch?
Corporal Clutch, yeah.
Corporal Clutch.
That was it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was such a great opportunity, and I still talk with some of the guys, Wes and George Bryan, and there's a few of the guys on the show that I still keep in touch with and see them at tour events. Richie Wierenski's still playing, and I talk to him, and it was a fun cast that was on there, but just so many great opportunities. I think one of the coolest ones for me was going to a disabled event in Australia. And the Australians were, they got a fun sense of humor, and they let me know that no American has ever come over there and won on their soil. And the first year I went over there, I ended up winning the tournament, and they were, we had beers afterwards. We had a great time, but they still don't let me live that one down that I was the first American to win over there. So
they were giving you no courtesies for your injury or amputation or anything, nothing.
Yep. Absolutely. So, but it was a lot of fun. And like I said, just so many great opportunities and just a fun journey that I've had that I do pinch myself and just, it's crazy that it's real sometimes.
I would talk a little bit about the Simpson Cup. We've mentioned it in some of the answers to these questions, and we talked about that's how Schwab actually got introduced to you all several years ago. So for people listening that aren't familiar with the Simpson Cup, it's a Ryder Cup style format. Every year switches back and forth from being played in the UK or the US. It was founded by a big name in the golf industry for a lot of years named John Simpson, injured veterans on both sides of the pond. One of the unique things about it, they play epic golf courses. So that in addition to being able to get these veterans together, as Chad was saying, he heard they were playing at Sawgrass, and that piqued his interest, and they've played in some really, really nice places for about a dozen plus years. And I mentioned they'll be in Shady Oaks next year in Texas if anybody wants to get involved with that. But Mike, talk a little bit about, you want to win. So there's a little bit of, competitive pride in there, but you're also talking about how good of friends everybody is. And a lot of people are going through similar journeys. So can you just talk a little bit about, there's a golf competition aspect of it, but there's really a lot more going on when you get these vets together. What has that been like, and what does it feel like, and what does it mean to you?
It's a whole bigger picture. It's not just about the golf, it's about helping others, and because you never know who needs you at that particular time. So if you can just giving someone some hope to, like for an example, if, a British veteran was in a very, very low point, the thought of being able to fly to America to represent his country again, to meet like-minded people and be in the situation where everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's got something going on, but you all still rip the mickey out of each other just because that's who we are, And there's more sort of camaraderie, and that it's just a big brotherhood. I think, it's a very, like for me, when I play the Simpson Cup, I'm not just representing my country. I'm representing every injured serviceman, every injured person that's in the world, So it just makes me proud to be able to do that and inspire others as well, because, it's like helping other veterans with their game. Just little things makes a big, big difference, I think, and Chad and I are luckily enough to be involved where we can change that and help others, which is where I see myself now. Rather, I'm still playing, but I'm at that point in my life now where I'm able to give something back, and that's what it means to me, is just seeing these guys win, lose, draw, whatever, just putting a smile on their face.
What about you, Chad? You'd mentioned the sawgrass being your intro to it, but it's similar feelings about the camaraderie. And but look, you guys also complain about other people's handicaps and you really want to beat. So there is a competition going on. It isn't all just helping your fellow vets kind of get through life, although that's a big part of it.
Yeah, there's definitely a competitive spirit that kicks in, because you do want to beat them. You want to represent, you want to win it for your country. And you find out that once you make the team, everybody's fighting for that same goal. Like everybody's pretty competitive, and I might say very competitive, because both the UK and the US have a qualifying process to get on the team. And so it's one of those, you fight all year and you try to keep your game as sharp as you can for those qualifiers and then for the Simpson Cup. So there's definitely a competitive nature to it. But like Mike said, it's the camaraderie of it. That's what makes the event so unique. And I'll put it in a different perspective. Going through the military, you're trained, over and over, day to day, to do whatever you can for your brothers and sisters that you're in the unit with. Everything is trained, for when you start facing fire, instead of, the flight kicking in, it's the fight. When you're ripped from that, whether it's, you retire or you're just done, or you get pulled from it like we did, with an injury and you can't really get back there. That's what makes the Simpson Cup so great, is because, and the qualifiers and all the on-course clinics and all the stuff they put on, that's what makes it so great, is you're around these guys and you might not have served with them, but we're all fighting for the same team, all fighting for freedom. And so being back around those guys, you're a part of that brotherhood again. And so that's what makes the Simpson Cup awesome, is you're, without bombs and bullets, you're fighting for your country. And at the end of the day, you're just playing golf. So, no matter who wins, yes, you want to win, but no matter who wins, like I'm always happy for the UK guys when they win, not because we weren't trying and that we didn't want to win, but to see the smiles on the guys' faces. There's nothing like it in the military sense, to be honest with you. There's nothing you can really compare it to, is winning something for your country. So it's just an amazing atmosphere, just very electric. You got guys, who are trying to rip each other's teeth out on the golf course, but then afterwards you sit down and have a beer and it's all a great time, and you're with guys from around the world and you're just having a great time, and it's revolved around golf. So it's truly one of a kind event.
I appreciate you mentioning also, we're talking about the Simpson Cup. The foundation that's behind it exists to help injured veterans get connections and networked and jobs into the golf industry. And so the event is wonderful, and it raises money for that cause. And we've been at Schwab, been proud to be a part of that. One kind of last thing, maybe it's a two-part thing. I'll switch over to you, Mike. If you have a little bit of a crystal ball, what are you excited about, or what gives you optimism, or what is exciting when you think about opportunities for veterans, injured or otherwise, in golf? Like, are there more opportunities, or like what does it look like now for veterans who may be interested in golf as a competitive or rehabilitative platform?
For me, golf's become such a good platform for rehabilitation in any aspect whatsoever. But the military side of things, it's becoming more and more like popular within injured servicemen, ladies, especially in Europe. We're getting more and more 1 day, 3 day clinics just from the support of people like yourselves. And, things like this wouldn't happen without people like yourselves, like Charles Schwab, and it's amazing the lives it changes. So the moral of that story is it's going in a massively right direction. It's changing lives. It's saving lives. And I'm excited to see more and more injured service personnel come on board, because it can literally change people's lives overnight.
Love it. Yeah, the USGA has started an event in recent years. Your tour in Europe is attached to the Pro Tour. It's not its own thing. It's like
I'm actually currently in Spain on tour now. So
as we speak, I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I flew out from Texas last week.
I should have known that.
Yeah, I flew out. So I'm half American now. So
well, we welcome you. Well, you still maybe you can play for the U.S. team on the Simpson Cup.
Imagine that.
Chad, we'll flip it over to you for the same question as we start to wrap it up. Kind of as you look into the future and you think about your own journey with what golf has provided and what you've given back through golf, what do you think it looks like for golf and veterans and injured veterans as you look forward? Are there more opportunities again? Better? Is it, and from where you sit, what does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ceiling is really high right now, for disabled golf, for On Course Foundation. There's just, with so many people getting on board, like you said, the USGA, the DP World Tour. I mean, it's just awesome to see where it's going. And like you mentioned before, like the venues we've been able to play is amazing. I mean, Shinnecock, a year and a half ago, Royal St. George, we were just at a few weeks ago. So it's been amazing. And to see where it's going, not just on the Simpson Cup side, but for the veterans themselves. And you talk about, On Course Foundation, one of its missions, or its big mission, is to get veterans in the golf industry, whether that's just playing, getting them introduced to golf for therapy reasons, or for careers, or, working in the industry. You have different types of people, right? You've got maybe a veteran like myself, who I'm naturally kind of not so outgoing, so I'm fine just sitting at my house. But for those kind of veterans, we've employed people where they're just working for the grounds crew at a golf course, right? So they don't have to talk to people. They love golf, they love playing it, but they're not so much people persons, right? So they can be behind the scenes and not have to do that, but they enjoy working at the golf course. And then on the flip side, you have people with very bubbly personalities and veterans who are great with people, and they want to work in the industry. And, whether it's fitting, walking through a person, fitting a set of clubs, and maybe they, we've heard stories of, veterans who have gone through the program for OCF and, ended up getting employed. Like one of the guys, Jake Nelson, he's still involved in the program. He's a club fitter for Callaway. And he had the opportunity to fit another veteran that was kind of up and coming in On Course Foundation. It's like you get these full turn moments that how the golf has helped somebody, and then they've turned around and flipped their lives around and have a great career going. And then they're on that path with On Course Foundation. And it's just full turn moments that you see kind of over and over. And so I think ideally you want to reach out and get as many veterans as we can involved. And it's just an amazing foundation that helps people. And so that's why I see, if we can reach out and get every veteran, which I know is a lofty goal, and not every veteran's going to be into golf, right? But if we can bring them out to the golf course and find out, oh, this person really loves hunting, really loves fishing, or really loves to, shoot guns at the shooting range, like finding whatever that person's passionate about, and then using our resources to say, hey, we know this fly fishing company out in Montana that you'd love it. If you're a fisherman, like get involved with that, get passionate about it. So I think just keep reaching out for veterans, getting them the help they need. And like I said before, like if you can help one veteran, everything's worth it at that point.
I couldn't agree more. Here's your last question. I'm going to start with you, Mike, because you kind of sort of alluded to this, and I feel like I know what you're going to say, but I'll ask anyway. If there was a magic wand and you could go back into that hospital from your leg break and they could put a cast on it and it was fixed and you could walk out, and you never had 30 operations, you never had the window, you never had the amputation, would you accept that magic wand, or do you think that you would take it the way it unfolded?
I think my life is sort of destined to be like I am now, so I would probably decline it, because obviously I would love my leg back, but it's one of them things where if this hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't have met you guys, I wouldn't have met Chad, I wouldn't have met anyone like that. And, I don't think I would change my life one bit. I mean, I've accepted what's gone on, and I'm so lucky and blessed to be able to do what I do through golf. And if I hadn't lost my leg, if I hadn't done all that sort of stuff, I would have never have experienced the experience I've had. So I'm really, really happy how I am now. And yeah, I wouldn't change it for the world.
You'd be a PE teacher somewhere, maybe not in street, but somewhere. Chad, what about you? What, you missed the IED by 7 or 8 feet just out of coincidence? Nothing ever happens. Would you take that magic wand or not?
You go back and forth on it, I think, because there are plenty of times when it's like, especially when things are going crappy and you kind of slowly go into that depression mode. But there's times like that when you're like, man, I trade my leg back, to get back some normalcy. But ultimately, like Mike was saying, like all the opportunities we had, if I wasn't injured, I wouldn't have got to come back home and, get reacquainted with my wife now. We've got 3 amazing boys. I wouldn't have the family I have now. I wouldn't have, the opportunities and know the people that I know. So I truly believe that God has a plan for all of us. And it was kind of destiny, I suppose, if you want to call it that. But, there's a plan for all of us. And I believe that using me as a story of overcoming adversity and helping inspire other people. And to go back, Mike, like I really appreciate the kind words you said earlier about me inspiring you, because it's stuff like that really makes, gives you a purpose in life and really just keeps me moving to the next day. So it's awesome. And yeah, I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I think that both of you being able to have inspired countless people, we're lucky that you're able to do that and appreciative of that. So thank you for sharing your stories. And, for a lot of years, you've been the two of you have been the face of veteran golf, of injured golf, sometimes of disabled golf more broadly. And you're very generous with your time for a lot of years. So thanks for giving us some of it, and appreciate it. Good luck with everything moving forward.
Thanks for having us on, Mason.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's been awesome.
So that's it for us today. Thanks for listening. In the show notes, we'll post links for Chad and Mike, as well as the Simpson Cup and On Course Foundation. And you might just want to search them on the internet so you can see their golf games with your own eyes. For all of Schwab's golf content, including our films, tournament news, and promotions, check out schwabgolf.com. If you've enjoyed the show, which we hope you did, we'd be really grateful if you'd leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, a rating on Spotify, or feedback wherever you listen. We'll be back with a new episode in 2 weeks. For important disclosures, see the show notes or schwab.com/thegame.